evening, everyone, and welcome to our School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Max Sanders, and I will be your moderator this evening. Today's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of St. Paul and is in partnership with the St. Paul Neighborhood Network and the NAACP St. Paul. The League of Women Voters St. Paul conducts candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. The League is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters St. Paul posts complete, unedited recordings of forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Excerpts or edited clips of candidate forums may not be used for partisan or political purposes. We ask that members of the audience refrain from recording or taking pictures tonight. Again, we will post a full unedited recording of tonight's forum on the SPNN YouTube page. We believe the success of our city and our schools depends on the values, knowledge, and commitment of our elected officials. Thus, it's essential for the public to better understand the views, opinions, and commitments of people running for elected office. It is this understanding that better equips voters with information to make informed voting decisions. We appreciate candidates in the audience for taking the time to be with us tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that you all have cards on your chairs for writing questions to the candidates. Once you have a question, please hold it up and a volunteer will come pick it up from you. Today's forum is for the candidates running for the St. Paul School Board. I'd like to welcome Carlo Franco, Zuki Ellis, Yusuf Carrillo, and Chantil Allen. The candidates participating in today's forum have all agreed to the forum rules, which were included in their invitation to participate. Each candidate will give a 2-minute introductory statement. The candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions and 30 seconds for a rebuttal if necessary. Candidates may only take a rebuttal if they are mentioned by another candidate. A timer will signal them when they have 30 seconds remaining and when their time is up. We will accept written questions throughout the forum. Questions submitted by the audience must be applicable to all candidates, nonpartisan, and must be on topics relevant to the elected office. Once you have a question written, please hold it up and a volunteer will collect it. Questions that are of a personal nature, embarrassing, hostile, or unclear in intent will not be asked. Similar questions may be consolidated and questions may be edited for clarity or brevity. Campaign literature, buttons, signs, clothing, or any other campaign-related items are not allowed in the room, but information on candidates is available on the tables outside the studio. Please remain as quiet as possible so that everyone can hear. Please hold your applause until the forum has ended so that the candidates will have as much time as possible to answer your questions. Please place your cell phones on silent. Members of the media may be recording this forum for their own use, and the forum is being recorded by the St. Paul Neighborhood Network for viewing by the public. With that, we're going to start with opening statements. Candidates will each have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and we're going to begin with Carlo.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters St. Paul and SPNN for hosting. My name is Carlo Franco. I am a first-time candidate for any public office. I am a youth worker. I'm a proud West Sider, lifelong community member of the West Side, and a proud St. Paul Humboldt graduate. I'm rocking my Hawks gear today. I have spent the last 10 years of my life being a connector, a community builder, an organizer, somebody who has been a youth worker in communities across our entire city of St. Paul, understanding what our young people have access to and are doing and how we can make that the center of our public services. I have worked for the city of St. Paul and understand that ecosystem and that infrastructure. I've actually been a restorative justice coordinator at Humboldt High School, where I graduated from, and so have seen our system from many different lenses. And I think it's important that folks in community that understand what's going on in community currently take the leap and govern our district and our public services. I have a lot of priorities that we'll, I'm sure, have an opportunity to talk about today. And I think the biggest one for me is how we really cultivate the culture in our school communities that we really want to see. that we do that in partnership with our city of St. Paul. We do that in partnership with Ramsey County, the state legislature, in making sure that we, again, deliver the highest quality public services, making sure that our young folks get that education that they deserve, regardless of what zip code they grow up in. And I will also just say that my neighborhood hasn't been represented on the St. Paul School Board in over 2 decades, and I think it has certainly been a voided voice, and I am excited to work in partnership with their board to make sure that my neighbors are taken care of, and our young people in my community also have a voice on that.
Thank you. Zuki?
My name is Zuki Ellis. I am in my 2nd term on the school board. I am a St. Paul graduate. I have a 10th grader that is currently in St. Paul and have 2 older sons who have graduated from St. Paul Public Schools as well. My dad is a mechanic arts graduate, and he always talks about the fact that, like, this community, our city, is really important to us, and service to our community is something that we all should be working toward and believe in. I have served in leadership roles on our board as vice chair, clerk, and the chair for 2 years. I have been a parent trainer for our parent-teacher home visit projects here in St. Paul and also nationally. I am currently attending grad school right now to get my master's. I am a special education parent advocate. My child has special education needs, and I have done PACER training and PACER leadership work as well. I have served on our Minnesota State School Board Association. I know a lot of our school board members across the state, here in the cities, but also in our first ring suburbs as well as greater Minnesota. I have also served on our Teachers Retirement Fund Board, our Joint Property Tax Advisory Committee, where we're talking about tax impacts on our school district, on our property tax, on our people and community, and how that's impacting them, along with taxes from our city and our county as well. I have loved every part of this job, and even the parts that are hard, I have loved. I have 33,345 reasons why I do that. That is our young people in this district. There are over 7,000 people who work in this district who have experiences, good and or bad, and it's about building them. I have relationships across this district, and that didn't just happen in a first term. A lot of that happened in a second term.
Thank you. Yusuf?
Hello, my name is Yusuf Carrillo. I am a candidate for school board. First of all, thank you for the League of Women Voters of St. Paul to host this event and really open, these doors to us to be able to listen to what we have to say. And thank you for the amazing work that is being done here at SPNN. First, I want to say I am a newish arrival to St. Paul. 2017, I moved here from California. Back in California, I worked for 10 years in enrollment at Oakland Unified School District. My work in Oakland Unified School District was difficult. It was hard. I had to, sometimes felt like I had to make a lot of compromises with what had to happen, what the rules were around enrolling students, the decisions that the community had made were that they considered fair, and the reality on the ground. The effects of, having to place 38,000 students at that time in that district. And so that experience I brought over here to St. Paul. My wife is a lifelong teacher. I have 2 students who are attending Highland Middle and Wellstone Elementary in 4th and 6th grade. And I am deeply, deeply committed to education in the city. Public education, I'm a champion for public education. I truly believe in the service that we can provide as a city, and I will fight for our students and for our rights to our parents to be able to engage with the community and feel like they're a part of this district. I want our district to be engaging, to be transparent, and for administration to foster a culture of listening and a culture of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Chantal?
Hi, my name is Chantal Allen. I am born and raised in the city of St. Paul. I'm a fourth-generation Rondo kid, so I grew up in the Rondo community, and my political career started in the early 1980s while I was in kindergarten. My father worked for the St. Paul Urban League for 20 years, and I remember specifically doing lit drops for Bill Wilson in the early 80s. And so that's what really kicked it off. Beyond that, you know, I graduated from St. Paul Central. Katie McGuat was my mentor, and she always put into me that it was necessary to give back to the community. If our community was going to be strong and everybody was going to win, then we had to take what we had and put it back into the community. And so right when I graduated from high school, I started working at community education, organizing after-school programs throughout the Rondo community. I moved to special ed for a few years at J.J. Hill, and then I left St. Paul Public Schools and went to Hennepin County Child Protection, where I worked for about 10 years there, really starting to understand how family dynamics played a role in education. And when I started to really understand that, I came back, because I had to come back home, right? And so I came back to St. Paul and worked for about another 10 years, and then I decided I wanted to run for school board. I studied African American Studies and Psychology at Metro State University. In the midst of all there, I volunteered with the Parks and Rec. I coached basketball. Ultimately, my basketball team went to Central High School because I went to Central High School, right? And so I got to move up and coach at Central and won a state tournament. And so I'm really proud of that moment. A lot of our girls got college scholarships. And so, yeah, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Chantal. We're going to stick with you for this first question. How will you hold the superintendent accountable to all programs, families, and staff? Specifically, please address how you will push back when needed to advocate for our children and staff.
I mean, I think it requires more than just one person. It requires an understanding of the full board. And so just this past couple years, I got involved with a national organization called School Board Partners, and I was a fellow there. And it focuses on equity in schools. And so I was a cohort of 75 board members, a lot of positive things happening there. And so I welcomed in some of my other board members to join me on this journey, hoping that they'll pick up some of the tools too, and we can all be on the same page and really push the superintendent to do what's right.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I think one of the things for holding the superintendent accountable is building a relationship with our administration that is open and fluid. And that's not something that we can do individually as board members. We actually have to come together as a board and train ourselves and assist our administration leaders, superintendent, and executive team to be able to be willing to be trained in, you know, what does it mean to be a transparent leader? What does it mean to be a leader that is trustworthy? And building those connections and trust. The accountability part needs to come from us because truly we are administrators of the school district, and I mean us, the hypothetical board. Yeah.
Carlo?
Yeah, so I am I am looking forward to bringing what community says into the school board seat. I am somebody who believes in community-centered leadership, and I believe that it's important that we expect our superintendent to be out in community, not only when we are having an event sponsored by SPPS or, where there's an invitation. I think it's important that we have community-centered leadership that is out all the time. There is a lot that I think we can structurally put in place in terms of a personnel committee. I think that there is some management in terms of how we track performance as it relates to the entire district, as it relates to what is being delivered through that office, and how we really return some of the decision-making power to our educational leaders. Like, we have some really amazing principals and leadership teams in our district and in the schools that I think should also help with that.
Zuki?
So the board has one person that they are evaluating and supervising, and that is the superintendent. And the board needs to be clear about what their expectations of him are, him or her or them, whoever it is. So I don't think that it's a matter of if we are or how we are. It's like if that's not cohesive across the board with the board, then those things, that accountability piece is missing. And so that's the job that the board actually has, is to tell the superintendent and to be clear about what the vision is from the board that directs the direction of the district. And if that's not what we're doing, then we're not being accountable to get the results that we want to see and that community is expecting to see from us as a St. Paul Public Schools and as a Board of Education.
Zuki, we're going to stick with you for this next question. The effects of the pandemic will be impacting our children, staff, and families for years to come. While this school year seems the most familiar and normal since the spring of 2020, we still have great needs in terms of mental health, social emotional learning, and literacy. How will you advocate for extra funding for staff and scientifically proven programs to help meet these needs?
I was just saying this the other night, that like the impacts of the pandemic are for the foreseeable future for our young people. I mean, there is no way around that. I think that there are a lot of ways that St. Paul Public Schools is addressing those things. We're talking that we have increased each year in each contract negotiation mental health supports for our students. We have increased the number of SSLs in our schools that are there in part to support our young people and get to know them and build relationship with them. We've increased support staff across our entire district too, and that's our school, our TAs, our educational assistants, our teaching assistants, our school and community support staff as well. I think that we will continue to need to do that to wrap around our kids, but that does include our partnerships with the city, and that does also include our partnerships with the county. Those things exist right now.
Carlo?
So I think there's a reality that we were in flux with millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in pandemic relief. So we through ESSER, through ARPA, and I think that we know, what we do know is that money was one-time money that is not going to be returned. And so I think that there is a need to continue to advocate at our state legislature to completely, fully fund our public education. So making sure that there's more resources allocated to special education services, making sure that there's more resources for our EL learners, specifically for mental health and SEL. I also think it's important that we look at, while we're looking at the reduction of dollars that are in our district, I think we have to make sure that we're prioritizing those supports at the base level for young people that are interacting with young people, our students, that for young people are for our people that are providing the mental health support. Those are things that we need to continue investing in and not pulling out from.
Chantel?
I'm going to have to agree with Carlo. We do need to fully fund our public education system. I think that's really important. And a lot of the dollars that we brought in, we were able to implement a lot of the things that Director Ellis was talking about around SELs and additional staff. And I'm hoping that some of the strategies that we implemented when the outcomes come out, we'll be able to re-implement those also. I do think that literacy is going to be a constant issue. We were already at a deficit before the pandemic, and I think we need to continue to invest in that right now. We are investing in the science of literacy, which is letters training for all of our teachers right now. I'm going to continue to push for more and more elementary teachers and even middle school teachers to get trained in understanding the science of literacy so that our students are successful, because when you can read, you can learn.
Yusuf?
Yep, I think one of the things that came in the conversation here, Carlo mentioned special education funding. This is a critical piece that our state is currently not fully funding special ed, and we as a board need to be advocating to our legislature, to our elected officials, to MDE, that we really need to form a coalition to tackle this issue. It's going to become more and more prevalent. The rates of special ed students in St. Paul are much higher than in the rest of the state, and we need to advocate for that. I think another critical component of our work is also to build really strong educational leadership teams at school sites. Leadership teams that not just take the voice of the top end of the administration and one or two people's opinion, but the opinion of the whole school community, so that we can actually identify what the real issues are at each school, unique issues and unique solutions that we can co-create together.
Yusuf, we're going to stick with you for this next question. What is the top safety issue facing St. Paul Public Schools students and staff, and what will you do to address it?
Currently, I think the top safety issue that we have is two things. I'm actually going to say that there's more than one, but they're connected. And really, the COVID has exposed our students to be very, very disconnected and disengaged from education. And when students are disconnected and disengaged from education, they feel more likely to fall through the cracks. All it takes is for one or two students to be struggling to really bring you could say the mean average of the class down. And we really need to wrap around support around students who are currently falling through the cracks, to be able to bring attendance support, to bring social services support, and to bring mental health support around them. And then most importantly too, we need to fix a culture that is unfortunately willing to not talk about these issues at the school level, and to be public about them.
Chantal?
I mean, I think one of our biggest issues is not being accountable. And I think the biggest way and the quickest way for folks to find that accountability is through restorative justice. I think it's necessary that everyone is trained in restorative justice, from the board all the way down to the 3-year-olds that will be taken in real soon in St. Paul Public Schools. And through the process of the circle, when they find their own accountability for how they implemented harm into the space, that's what actually starts to change the behavior. And so I think that restorative justice is a huge piece. We need to implement that throughout our school district. But another piece that I think I heard from a lot of our students in our listening sessions with students last year was really the lack of safe spaces outside of school. And because they have that time to just be idle, a lot of things happen, and that spills back into the schools themselves. And so I really want to look at a better partnership with the city and the county to build those safe spaces for our students.
Zuki?
Yeah, this one is hard, thinking about conversations that we had with our young people, because their concerns and feelings were very different from the adults. It was, who are our people in our buildings that we can count on and rely on, and then the adults trying to figure out, like, how do we support our students better, and or what is happening in community or around them that is impacting them when they are in school. And there isn't an easy solution and or fix or answer to this question. I think it takes a lot more than the school district to support our young people, but we're expected to do everything. And the capacity of our people who are working in our district, and the capacity of our young people to try to figure out where resources may be is really hard. If it's hard for our families to navigate it, how easy is it for our young people to figure out how they get support?
Carlo?
So one of the things I want to acknowledge is that a lot of times we think about safety issues in our school and assume it's the entire building, right? Like, what do I know from being a restorative justice coordinator at Humboldt is that it's a very small percent of the young people, and a lot of times they need the most wraparound services and support. And so if we really, I think with ARPA, if we would have been able to really put, a caseload of 1 to 10 or 1 to even lower than that, that adult was responsible for making sure that they weren't only just taken care of when they were here, they were taken care of outside, and they were the connector of those resources. I agree with Director Allen in the fact that we need to fully invest in restorative practices and restorative justice as the outcome of what we implement as an entire school-wide community. I think that it is important that we have this conversation with the city of St. Paul and with the county to ensure that we're aligned in what our community first public safety initiatives are and the common language that we're able to speak in our buildings. And we just wrap around and really take care of our young people and center their voices in this process.
Carlo, we're going to stick with you for this next question. What do you believe are the reasons why St. Paul Public Schools has not been able to end the disparity in educational outcomes for African American, Native American, and immigrant students?
That is a big question that was going to take more than 1 minute to answer, but I will try. I think that we can go historically back and we can recognize that that not everybody was given an equal chance to start out. I think that we need to acknowledge that wraparound services are critical. If people's basic needs aren't met, then how do we expect young people to come to school and fully learn? What I believe is that every single parent is sending their best young person to school, and that every young person wants to show up as their best self. However, I think the way that we address that as a system is not always what centers our young people and their needs. I think that there is a lot more resources that we need from all the different players at hand. I think, again, I'll go back to the fact that we need to do this work in partnership and listen to what people want and need, and we need to deliver on that and hold ourselves accountable to that. And I think that there's some tangible pieces like culturally relevant curriculum and hiring more Black and brown educators in our spaces.
Thank you. Zuki?
So thinking about going back historically, right, our schools were segregated, right? And when our schools integrated, a lot of those educators who were in those segregated schools weren't being hired in integrated schools, right? And so we continually talk about like needing to hire more teachers of color, and in St. Paul Public Schools, that is happening. We have administration teams that are going down to our HBCUs to recruit teachers of color. That is actually happening. But again, as we talk about how do we support young people, why do we keep talking about this opportunity and achievement that our students aren't attaining? And that's a systemic problem, right? Like what are we doing, what are we not doing? And that's so big. That's just so big. But I think that there are things that that St. Paul Public Schools is trying to do, but clearly we're not there yet.
Chantal?
The number was 55,000 Black teachers was what we lost when we integrated back into the schools. And so we're slowly trying to replenish those numbers. I am a huge supporter of Suitor because I believe in having people that look like our students in front of them is a huge part of them achieving, because then they can see that they can also be great. I'm a huge supporter. As a matter of fact, I supported the Ignite Your Heart scholarship for teachers of color, and specifically teachers of color that are in the Suitor program this last year. It's a group of folks that come together from churches and put this money together for scholarships. But one of the biggest issues definitely has to do with culturally relevant curriculum and ensuring that our students are directly connected to the education that they're receiving. Right now, there's a huge disconnect, and they just are not feeling it. And so culturally relevant curriculum and seeing themselves in their teachings.
Thank you. Yusuf?
I think we have to acknowledge the harms that we have done as a society to our students of color, and we need to acknowledge that we have systems and infrastructure that has been actively weaponized against our students and people of color. And without acknowledging that, we're not going to move forward. In order to actually tackle the work, we cannot do this individually. Even as a board, united, we can't do it alone. We're going to have to partner with our city, with our county, with our state, and even with our federal government to tackle some of these issues. And the first and foremost that comes to my mind is housing is a big issue in the city. Students who historically have higher rates of homelessness, and that definitely affects our African American, American Indian, Latino populations. They're going to be facing, high distress in the classroom, and the educators have to handle this. So I want to encourage us to work together.
Yusuf, we're going to stick with you for this next question, which I realize that's becoming my slogan. So what are your plans to collaborate with other city programs on issues such as housing that profoundly impact student performance?
Housing is one of them. I think the plan is really to build coalitions. And that means not just start conversations and let them sit in that space, but actually form teams of people who work cross-organizationally to tackle some of these issues. People who have high rates of chronic homelessness in a specific area, how can we get those students to be well-served? That's just not something that I myself alone or another director could work on. It's going to have to be together with city council, county, and maybe somebody in the health department, as well as, hey, how about dental services for our students? How can we tackle dental infections and the effect that they have on our students and their learning? So, yeah.
Chantel?
Can you repeat the question?
I sure can. If I can find it. Sorry, give me 1 second.
It was something.
Yeah, I don't know. Hold on, give me 1 second. Oh, there it is, sorry. And see, we don't edit it, so this is all going to be on air.
Nice. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys.
We'll edit that, I'm just kidding, we won't. What are your plans to collaborate with other city programs on issues such as housing that profoundly impact student performance?
I mean, I think that is a huge job, and I think being in the community and advocating for housing, I was definitely a supporter of rent control. But being in support of housing and all of the other entities, I mean, we have food deserts that are popping up. I mean, Midway Shopping Center is now gone. That's a problem. We need to rebuild in those spaces, and that revenue goes back into our school system. I mean, I think a lot of just being a community organizer and in community and supporting folks around housing that are organizing. I don't want to be the expert at everything. I just want to be there to support. Definitely going to the legislator and talking about how a lot of our poverty gap is impacting our educational outcomes, and having those conversations are huge.
Carlo?
Yeah, so specific to housing, I will say quickly, supporting, making sure that our young people can not have to move every year, and making sure that they don't get priced out of their home. So rent control is certainly important, and also taking that another step forward. And I know Erica Valiant, who's not here today, would also agree that home ownership and creating pathways for our whole families in order to build generational wealth through home ownership is also important. I will also say we pilot this right now with the city of St. Paul, partnership with the city, county, and the school district in career pathways. So how do we make sure that we're all having conversations with young people thinking about their future, and doing that in rec center spaces, library spaces, and also in our school spaces, and making sure that they have the resources to make sure that they can actually take those leaps and prepare themselves for that future. And I will also say in our rec centers, making sure that our folks that are community leaders that are working in our rec centers can also access our school buildings, and they see people inside and outside of our school spaces, especially for the young people that are having the most challenging time learning in our spaces.
Suki?
Right now, St. Paul Public Schools has Project Reach, and that gets our kids who are experiencing homelessness with their families, get them to school, so school is the consistent place that they're able to be in. I think that the struggle with that is that our kids aren't in community. They're being transported throughout the city, and sometimes aren't even in the city of St. Paul, which is problematic in the ability that and the disadvantage of them not being able to be in the community that could and possibly support them. Again, you can't. We know that there are a lot of things that are happening, but I also know that there's work that is happening with St. Paul Public Schools that is trying its best to support our young people. And again, seeing a lot of these programs impact our young people and wrapping around their entire families. It's not that this is separate, like this is a student with their families.
We're going to stick with you, Zuki, for this next question. What should St. Paul Public Schools do to erase the disparity in discipline between white students and African American students?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a very, very big one. It is the mindset of adults that need to change and how they treat and look at and see our young people. They're not looking at our young people and seeing genius in the faces that are there. They're seeing there are problems that are, and let's be honest, our young people are trying to figure out who they are, and that can come out in a lot of different ways. But how we approach that and how adults react to that is really important, and it creates a lot of problems and a lot of this data that we're seeing where there is this huge disparity because two kids who look different could be doing the exact same thing, and one student is going to be the student who's going to end up with their name on paperwork and sent to the office. That is a collective we problem that we need to address and talk about and be real honest about.
Carlo?
So I would just agree that there are certainly cultural differences that exist within our school infrastructure, our institutions, or rather. However, I think the way to move forward is by co-creating the expectation. We actually work with the young people that have the toughest time, that are being referred to the office, and actually we create what the expectation looks like with them. Our school community adopts that, and then we hold each other accountable to it, and that's the restorative practices framework that Director Allen was referring to. That's how we move forward, and if everybody has an equal voice, when we sit in circle and we can repair things that have been harmed, sending people home for 4 days isn't going to help anybody. And I think when we can sit down and really hash it out and have real conversations with one another, and knowing that the adults in our spaces are open to that and the young people and the families are open to that, that's how we can move forward collectively.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I think I can give a little bit of a personal example on this. My children are 9 and 11, and in past years they have had a lot of energy and have shown it very well to staff at school. And I'm always surprised at the fact that even in those spaces and with loving teachers, there is sometimes disparity in the fact that they, who look very white, will be treated differently than African American counterparts. And I think that's opened my eyes, and through questions and truly through listening is the only way that we can actually help our school communities become safe spaces for everybody. And in order to do that, we need to truly open up the idea of the wonderful idea of culturally relevant education and culturally relevant curriculum, and allowing our students to feel welcome in their own space.
Chantal?
I'm going to have to agree with Carlo. We definitely need to implement restorative justice so that we can have a fair playing ground when we're making our decisions around how to respond to our students. I think that staff definitely need to change their attitude, and they need to change their expectations for all of our students. And like Director Ellis was saying, they need to be able to see greatness in all students despite whatever they're going through in their home, whatever poverty gap that they're experiencing. They need to be able to see that those children can too be doctors and lawyers and engineers and great professions that will impact the city of St. Paul, and put just as much as effort into it. I will say that this upcoming year, I'm going to be really pushing for an equity audit for the St. Paul Public Schools. I think that until our teachers and all of our staff really see it on paper, they don't really believe the impact that it's having. And the best way to do that is to really bring it with data.
We're going to stick with you, Chantal, for this next question. Expectations need to be established very early. How do you support early childhood education?
I do. I think I think Spark is great. I believe that three. To be honest with you, when it first started, I was a little skeptical of 3-year-old preschool because you're exposing them to this system that doesn't necessarily see them as great, as we just talked about in the previous question. But as I continued to organize in community, my community kept saying, no, we want that. No, we want that. We need that. We have to have that. And so I definitely got behind it and started to put some extra pushes on some of the things that concerned me in the process. And I started to see some amazing changes happen in our early childhood program. We have a very equity-centered program that is happening in our St. Paul Public Schools right now, and I'm excited for our 3-year-olds to get exposed.
Yusef?
We need to grow our early childhood education program to be an attractor of families in St. Paul. And that's one of the things that we're going to be facing as a district in the future is just lower child birth rates and, lower enrollment because of that. The only way that we can combat that is by having unique programs that are going to attract families to say, I want to move to that city because they will take care of my family. They will take care of my kids. And in collaboration with our partners in city and in county, we need to be able to make a reality that, parents will have access to programs like these early childhood programs, not just 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, but down to 3 and even maybe 2, to be able to allow parents the flexibility to say, I can do this and I don't have to put myself in a financially precarious situation or have to rely on family to be able to do this and put them on a financial bind as well.
Zuki?
Yes, yes, and yes. So early childhood family education. So we have staff within St. Paul Public Schools that contact our family, who contact people who have just had babies, right? And so you're getting contact at early childhood family education. You've got babies that come to our school buildings. You've got opportunities to build relationships with families so that they're seeing this opportunity for their child to start pre-K within St. Paul Public Schools and see themselves on a pathway that keeps them there. For years, St. Paul Public Schools has had waiting lists for pre-K programs because they're great. They really are. And we just never have had a full capacity to do that, and we lose our families when we don't create these opportunities. And there's been very purposeful work happening around it, and we have pre-K hubs. That's giving our families an intro into St. Paul. Would it be great if they were all within our schools? Yeah, but the capacity to do that isn't there, and I think that's a place we're still growing, and that's exciting.
Carlo?
Yes, Director Ellis's point, I think it is great that our pre-K programs and our ECFE programs are bumping and have enrollment, and those are the future, kindergartners and up to 12th graders and plus that will be in our district. I think also recognizing the fact that what I will say is childcare, but also what I recognize as childcare is actually early education, because all of those providers are also providing educational services to the young people. It is so expensive. It is very expensive, and there's not a ton of resources out there that our families can actually reach out to and know how to access in order to provide that service. And so education around where they can access the funding and the additional resources is important. And if we can't provide the full service, how can we uplift some of the other folks that are? And how do we make it affordable? How do we make sure that the people that need those additional resources get them?
Carla, we're going to stick with you for this next question. After the death of a student last spring, the board received info about a nonviolent training program. Do you think it's important to implement something like this?
I think that's a heavy question, and I think that when we talk about what happened in that space, I think that if we invested in fully invested in a restorative practices program where there was enough people that know our young people outside in community, that know our people inside community, that we can put structured transition plans in place for, that we can be in relationship with one another, that we can avoid situations like this happening in the future. I think that I am unsure what is currently being implemented in terms of directly from that situation, but what I know is that community hurts from that. What I know is that as a system, we have to acknowledge ownership and how we can do better. And I think we also have to make sure that we repair it in a way that centers our young people, and we actually don't only do it then. When something happens, it has to be proactive.
Zuki?
Can you repeat the question?
I sure can. After the death of a student last spring, the board received info about a nonviolent training program. Do you think it's important to implement something like this?
Yeah. That's a really hard question to answer, and that was an experience that two of us were occupying seats at this table at that time, and there is something that we need to be doing and thinking about differently, and it's not just one thing. I think as a collective board, I think as a community, I think as a school district, St. Paul Public Schools, we really need to talk about what it is, if there is going to be some sort of nonviolence training or something that our community wants us to do in a way that addresses this possible training about it. I'm not even sure what that question means or that training is or was. So I don't.
Chantal?
I mean, I think the nonviolent training we need is restorative justice. And I think that, if we think about that particular situation or other situations that have not gotten so violent, but still violence has occurred, it could have been prevented. And it could have been prevented by having people who know the children, have a relationship with them, and being able to have those circles and talk about being nonviolent with each other so that they can learn how to squash the issue or find a space that we can have safety in in our buildings. Even if the issue isn't squashed, there's ways to get the students to agree that school is not the place for violence. It just requires the expectation that they can achieve that, and then being able to know the tools of restorative justice so that you can get everything out into the circle and then restore in a way that is positive.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I'm not aware exactly of the nonviolent training that was requested or presented, but what I do think is important is that our schools need to be built up in safety, and that takes time. It's not something that we can flip a switch and all of a sudden we're safe. It's not something that the adults do and immediately the kids feel safe. It's something that we have to do together, and we have to truly build up. Tools like restorative justice help us get to that place, but it's a concerted effort. And one of the risks or concerns that I have is that we sometimes begin programs and don't finish them. I think it's going to require a lot of concerted effort, a lot of willing to stick with the plan that a board comes together with, and listening to community, ultimately listening to community.
Zuki, we're going to go to you first for this next question. This is actually from YouTube. Students in private school receive a high level of support to get them to college. How can public schools do the same?
A high level of support?
Yes, students in private school receive a high level of support to get them to college. How can public schools do the same?
I think that St. Paul Public Schools right now is working really hard on our career pathways for students, and not just that is what you are doing in high school as part of your experience, that is something that you're experiencing from kindergarten, from pre-K, right? We have personalized learning plans for our students, and one of the first questions we ask them is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that can, and I hope, and that changes over time, right? And if it doesn't, like, how are we supporting that, and how are we giving them opportunities to tap into those things that get them excited about learning and things that they possibly want to do and be when they grow up? And I think that that's great. And I think that, like, the access and opportunity to those things are something that's continuing to grow, and that's good.
Yusuf?
I think when it comes to comparing private school, maybe the question is directed at class sizes, and maybe the question is directed at tutoring. Those are the two main differentiators. I would actually strongly suggest that, you know, the teachers and the educators at St. Paul Public Schools are far better than at a private school institution, because they have much better training and a strong union that is continually working to support them in their growth. The area around how we can get, you know, class sizes down, it really is going to be a community effort. Do we really want to invest in that? And that's something that we can start posing the question and working together as a community to say, is this something that we really want to invest in, and how much? Because it's not going to just be us as a board coming to you with a tax levy. That wouldn't be the approach. The approach would be, do you want to do this, and we will work together.
Chantel?
Can you repeat the question again?
I
just
can.
want to be clear.
No, you're fine. Students in private school receive a high level of support to get them to college. How can public schools do the same?
I think some of the things that we're doing better at St. Paul Public Schools is providing opportunities for success, and not just to four-year institutions, but also through technical programs, and really guiding, like Director Ellis talked about, the personal learning plans, and really guiding what their dreams are and what it is they really want to do. I think that we could do things that we could do better is we could expose them to different types of institutions, like historically black colleges and universities, and showing them that there's other options beyond just the University of Minnesota, and giving them the other pathways towards success. Everyone doesn't have to go straight to a four-year institution. You can go to a two-year school and get an associate's degree. As a matter of fact, you can go to St. Paul Public Schools and get an associate's degree. And that's how we're supporting them, is we're creating pathways right inside of our buildings so that students can graduate with associates.
Carlo?
So I would just first off start by saying that I think we recognize that there is a substantial socioeconomic difference of folks that can afford private school institutions versus public school institutions, but and for the folks that are choosing and betting on our St. Paul Public Schools, I think uplifting the really successful things that happen, and recognizing that a dozen young people from St. Paul Humboldt can graduate with an associate's degree from St. Paul College at the same time they get their high school diploma. Recognizing how much in the past decade we've uplifted the programs that actually allow and support young people earning classroom credit, like myself, as college in the schools participants, right? Like, these are real programs that exist in our infrastructure that I think we have to do a better job really early on, making sure that our young people can read by grade 3, that our young people have the basic skill set to see that as their pathway forward, if that's what they choose.
Chantel, we're going to go to you for this next question. Sure. How will you work to increase funding for public schools, and what sources of revenue will you pursue?
I've always felt like, you know, when we talk about cross-subsidy funding, which is the dollars that we use for English language learners, I've always felt that the federal government plays a part in this, and they don't. The dollars come out of the state. But when, you know, the United States decides that they're going to go to another country and drop a bomb, per se, and make folks uncomfortable in their own country, and then they welcome them into our country, there should be resources behind that. They spent billions and billions of dollars, sometimes trillions of dollars, on the war that destroyed their countries, but yet they want to invest minimal dollars. And so I think we really need to build a stronger coalition of states really going to the federal government and saying, what is your responsibility in ensuring that all students in our districts get the proper education?
Yusuf?
I think special education is one item that I'll repeat again. We can advocate to our state to fully fund, and that would be a huge difference for St. Paul. And then ultimately, I think enrollment growth is going to be the biggest driver for our budget in the future, especially as people have less and less kids. We need to start thinking about ways that we can attract families to St. Paul. So that is going to be a coalition work that we have to come together with our partners in the city and partners in the county and saying, hey, we need to make St. Paul a place that has a very high quality of life. And how do we become partners in that endeavor? And that includes housing, education, health. What are the three pillars that people are looking for to have a decent, successful life and to give their kids a chance?
Carlo?
Yeah, so I agree with Director Allen on this. There's a lot of unfunded mandates that then our schools have to find the dollars for, which comes out of our general fund, which we all know how that goes. One of the things as a young homeowner in our city, recognizing that like taxes can hit you hard, right, in our city. And so what I think is one of the strategies that I think will support what Yusuf said in terms of enrollment increasing is being very transparent with how we're currently spending our money, being transparent about what services exist within our buildings, being transparent about what dollars go to programs that aren't actually directly impacting our young people, or positions for that matter that aren't directly impacting our young people at the school level right now. And I think building up some foundational trust between community and our district, which I am a product of and I'm proud to be a product of, I think that building that trust and having community-centered leadership in this space can help increase the enrollment, which then in turn will bring more dollars into our district.
Zuki?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure can. How will you work to increase funding for public schools, and what sources of revenue will you pursue?
Okay, so in the first term, it was figuring out, in the first term, which was the first 4 years, figuring out all of these systems within systems within systems within systems and how education gets funded. And then it's like, and figuring out who we partner with as organizations, who we're in, as far as the Minnesota School Board Association, as far as Association of Metropolitan School Districts, who are all doing advocacy for funding and making sure that our schools are getting the resources that it needs. And none of these things are happening in isolation. These are organizations moving together with a lot of overlap around funding and the impact of the cross subsidy and the impact of the per pupil funding not changing and then going to 2%, which didn't change anything for our district. We weren't getting any additional monies. No district was. It was just keeping everything flat. And so there has been advocacy work around this cross subsidy, because if they're it's like steady, right? Or you got me started and then didn't let me finish.
You know what? We are going to stick with you for the next question. What do you see as positive developments at St. Paul Public Schools currently?
I'm really excited about SPPS Reads. I am excited about the work that our WIN teachers are doing, what I Need Now teachers who are addressing some opportunities with our young people to have some one-on-one time to be practicing reading. Just watching our young people with our educators reading and being excited about the things that they're doing and seeing. I'm really excited that is where we moved from, seeing our young people making progress with what I Need Now teachers, and then deciding that this is work that we need to be doing, not just with a group of our students, but with all of our students. So let's talk about SPPS Reads, and that is going to look like a lot of different things, right? And that's exciting. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to get some things moved with our young people and doing some work around with the board, in partnership with the board. We had SEEB, and we need to figure out what comes next.
Carlo?
So first, I will say, as the school year just kicked off, I think one of the things I'm most excited about is the East African Magnet School that recently opened. I think that's something that community has been calling for a really long time, and I think the district responding to that is an asset to our overall community. The other thing, because I get to be a part of this as a partner, that I'm really excited about is our emphasis on career pathways and in asking young people what it is that they want to do in their future and how we set them up for that. How do we expose them to even a non-traditional, as it relates to the past of our school district, as an apprenticeship, that they can become an electrician or a buildings trades or a plumber and make, very good money directly out of high school and continue their learning and education, because that is also a field that is growing and is going to continue to grow, especially as it relates to the infrastructure bills that were passed at the federal government.
Chantal?
I'm gonna have to agree, I'm big on literacy, so Director Ellis hit it. So I'm really excited about SPPS Reads, and also for our Pathways program, which is something that I was strongly advocating for when I ran before, was increasing the Pathways opportunities for some of our students. I'll say, though, just going building to building, I've been really excited to see a lot of people of color in leadership positions. Teachers, before you'd go into a building, you'd see a lot of people of color, but they were paraprofessionals or not in front of the classroom with any authority. And so it's nice to see people of color to be able to sit down at every single meeting and have a conversation about how we're going to increase our outcomes moving forward. So that's nice.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I want to emphasize SPPS Reads and the work that is being done there. And I think, it's been mentioned many times, but literacy is a key component and a key indicator for student success long-term and their educational, outcomes. And I want to really encourage, the people who are doing that to continue the good fight, because it's a lot of work, but yeah. And then I think, personally, I will always vouch for, specialized programs such as dual language immersion and the amazing work that the teachers are doing. Seeing that work in middle school for my sixth grader has been amazing. And I am super excited to see what he gets to do with his, now his own educational choices, as he's given opportunities to, do, different class structures that he actually has a hand in participating in. So that's very positive.
We're going to stick with you, Yusuf, for this next question. How can the district meet the challenges of declining enrollment?
So I may have hinted at or mentioned it before. It's a big issue. Declining enrollment is a problem for every single urban district in the U.S. right now. The core issue that we have to address is what are the things that are driving people away? And we have to be honest about it, and we have to be transparent. As a board, we cannot let or issues that are in our control be the drivers for parents leaving. And I can say, like, if the culture of our district is driving people away, we need to change it, and we need to address it quick. Ways that we can do that are going to have to be to, work with our administration to maybe have a culture reset and figure out ways that we can make our schools places that are attractive to our families. And then second of all, addressing our safety. I think fully funding restorative justice is going to make that difference for safety in our schools.
Chantal?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. How can the district meet the challenges of declining enrollment?
I mean, obviously, strong programs. I think that's really important. Building out exactly what parents see for their children in our schools is going to be really important. I think we have a lot of variety of really strong programs that exist. We really need to get like a really strong Freedom School program that's happening through the school year, something that really relates to our young people. I think that would be really helpful. And I also think just strong, equitable programs. I mean, one of our struggles is the fact that not just our students of color, but the parents of color, our teachers of color, our leaders of color, all feel othered in our district, and we have to figure out a way to make them feel like they're a part of this process that we're going through. And I think it's providing strong equity in our district, and we really have to just start tackling that.
Zuki?
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah. How can the district meet the challenges of declining enrollment?
Okay. So I think that our families have a lot of choices within St. Paul Public Schools. I think they have a lot of choices within St. Paul, the city of St. Paul. And we also have to talk about what is the affordability in St. Paul. A lot of our families can't even afford to live in the city. And so if we can't afford to live in this city, like that for sure is going to have an impact on our enrollment. A lot of the conversations that I had in community when our students were on Metro Transit buses were this matter of, I don't want my child on the city bus if my kid can go to a school where a bus comes to our house, I'm going to do that. So I think that there are a lot of reasons that our families make the choices that they make. They don't make them out of spite to the St. Paul Public Schools. They're making them for ease and opportunity and for their child's education. And so I think that we're comparable and competitive, but we're also in positions where we just aren't allowing a lot of options and opportunity for our families to access us.
Carlo?
We need to ask people why they're not choosing our schools, and we need to do better community engagement and outreach to the folks that are not choosing our schools or that are choosing to leave our schools. And we actually need to take that information and do something with it, which doesn't always happen. I will also say that I think investing in allowing and making it easier for people to utilize our public infrastructure. We have the largest bits of public infrastructure throughout the city. We need to make our doors open, whether that during out of school time, after school, how do we invite people in and stop making it so hard and so expensive for people to pull a permit to utilize that space. If people can start utilizing that space for community gatherings, events, sports activities like the West Side Boosters and other nonprofit organizations, or people will have exposure to our buildings, and we're bringing the people to the schools. And then how do we work with the school communities to actually step in and show up and ask them how we can keep them there for education?
We're going to stick with you, Carlo, for this next question. What's the greatest skill you bring to this position, and how will you use it to support student success?
I am 28 years old. I have been in nonprofit leadership. I've been in City of St. Paul government leadership. I have also worked in the schools as a restorative practices coordinator. I've been on board of directors for nonprofits. I have, and I also am not, I know I have the backing of community, the folks that I have worked with across this entire city of St. Paul, that it's gonna guide this work. And I think that is critically important, because then when it gets hard, right, because it's gonna get hard, especially as we're looming, there's gonna be expiration of federal funds. We're going to have to make hard decisions, and we know that community got our back, and we have to be open about that. I think that is a skill and an asset that we're going to unapologetically have to advocate for, and continuing to center our community and the experiences that our young people are bringing. And again, I come at it with multiple perspectives: student, educator, fill in the blank, and it's probably there.
Zuki?
Will you repeat the question?
Sure can. What's the greatest skill you bring to this position, and how will you use it to support student success?
I've spent 8 years, 2 terms, studying St. Paul Public Schools in many iterations, when it's been in deficits, when it got ESSER funds, when it got ARP funds, and watching people come into this district, people go into this district, watching so much happen within St. Paul Public Schools. And again, mentioning that I had been on other boards that the district is in partnership with. So our St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund Association, our Association of Metropolitan School Board Districts, right? Like all of these things that are partnerships and work that is collective in education. And I think that that is really important. This isn't just the city of St. Paul. This is so many things that education touch in this state. And I've done advocacy work for St. Paul Public Schools for our young people.
Chantel?
I think I build really good relationships with students, and I have really good relationships with students. I think that that's one of my biggest assets. And also being a community organizer, I have a really good gauge on what community needs, what community wants in the schools. I also was born and raised in these schools. My students both my children both graduated from these schools. So I've had this experience as a student, as a parent, and as an educator in this district, and I think I bring that as an asset.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I think my biggest asset is just a very, very strong curiosity and desire to learn. I know the inside of the administering side of a district because of my work in enrollment and being able to run projections and see the whole budget process go through from beginning to end. And that really, helped me in my first tenure in 2021 when I served when Steve Marchese left for Seattle. And so I have past experience, but most importantly, I really bring experience in how the process of doing things works in a district. So I think my advocacy is going to be really strongly guided towards listening and being a learner of what people need rather than what we think is right or wrong, and really focusing on what the community needs.
We are going to move now to our closing statement portion. As a reminder, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statements. We're going to go in the opposite order of opening statements, which means, Chantel, we are going to start with you.
I guess I just want to say, everybody needs to get out and vote. I think that's most important. I'm a true believer in the voters will tell the tale. We know that St. Paul is heavy on education. We know that we not only do we have a great education system here in St. Paul, but we produce great educators. And so we have to continue to invest in that pipeline of producing great educators for our St. Paul public school system. Like I said, I'm in a fellowship with a bunch of folks around the country, and sometimes when I'm sitting at the diocese, it feels like there's a lot going on in our district and so much to do, but we are way far ahead of quite a few districts in this country, and I want to keep us far ahead.
Thank you. Yusuf?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for hosting this event. Your vote is extremely important. We tend to overlook our local elections, but our local elections actually are the ones that matter the most in your daily life. And so I want to encourage you who are here in the room and you who are listening, maybe in your room or somewhere on a phone, please vote. It's extremely important. This election is very important. It's going to determine the course of the future of the district and the future of our families and our students' life here in St. Paul. We need to make this a high quality of life city, and we need to listen to our communities and truly be a voice and advocate for them. So thank you.
Zuki?
I believe that St. Paul Public School is the best school district in the state. I believe that our educators are the best educators in our state, and I believe that our young people in St. Paul Public Schools are the absolute best and absolute genius. I sit here because I want to continue work that I've started and have done for 2 terms. Like I said, there are 33,345 young people who I am thinking about all the time and wondering if I'm doing the right thing and making the right decisions and what impacts I'm going to have on them. And I do not take those decisions or that lightly in any way, shape, or form. I have families who reach out to me in the grocery store. I have families who reach out to me via email. I have family members or family who reach out to me when I'm at rec centers and in our schools. They find you and they share what they're concerned about and what they care about. And what they care about is their young people, their babies. And again, I do not take that lightly. Thank you for this opportunity to be here with you, to speak, for listening. Thank you for thinking about education in this way and how you are going to vote, because it matters and it's important. And I encourage you to talk to your young people about this upcoming election and the impact that this election is going to have on their future in education, but also in the city, right? Because there are also city council races happening right now too. And so there's a lot happening and a lot going on. I am committed to St. Paul Public Schools. This is my school district. This is my city. I throw down for it every single day. I love it. It's painful. It's wonderful. And I have love for the challenges. I have love for the ability to figure out what we're going to do next. And there are hard things that are coming. And in the hard things, right, there's also good.
Carla?
So I have had to spend a lot of time justifying, my parents have had to spend a lot of time justifying why Humboldt. You can go to any school in the city, any school, and say, why Humboldt? Well, I believe in education, I believe in public education, and I believe that the same public education that my parents got, that my grandmother got, that my aunts and uncles got, that it should be equitable regardless of what zip code you live in, regardless of if you can afford, the highest priced education that you could possibly do. I believe that every single young person in our city should have access to that. And I believe that from a public infrastructure, from a public budget, from a public tax dollars, paying for our public education, that we need to deliver on that, and we need solid community-centered leadership that is going to make that their priority. I worked at Humboldt, and I left working my favorite job in the city of St. Paul because I also knew that if I was going to continue to be an advocate for public education, for my school and my community, that I needed to understand how the back end of this works, right? Why are people not choosing our school right now? And I had to go in, and I was there for 4 years understanding what a lot of the barriers were. Right now, as we're also going out and asking people for their vote, we're also studying the last 10 years' budgets, and we're also studying the policy that exists on a statewide and a federal level, so that way on day one we can get in and not have to take a transition year to learn. Granted, that's going to happen, right? There's going to be a lot of learning that will need to happen. My ears are open, my eyes are open, and I want to take that in so that way we can provide the most solid leadership that our young people and our community deserve.
I want to really thank the candidates for an insightful conversation today. We want to thank, on the behalf of the League of Women Voters of St. Paul, we want to thank the St. Paul Neighborhood Network, where we filmed this, for hosting us. We also want to thank the NAACP of St. Paul. I also want to plug that early voting does start this Friday. That's September 22nd. Also, the NAACP St. Paul will be hosting a school board forum on October 5th at the Hallie Q. Brown Center. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Good night.